Tonight on James Talk Africa, my guest is Mona Lisa Abimbola Azeh, a lawyer turned shoemaker, and the CEO of Mona Lisa Matthews, a leading shoe and bag maker in Nigeria. Abimbola shares about the journey she has had of just listening to God in her walk through the marketplace. Tonight on James Talk Africa. Please like this video and leave a comment below. Let's know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell button and share this video with somebody.
From Cape Town to Cairo and from Mogadishu to Dakar, this is James Talk Africa. And now here's your host, Chim Onyibilanma.
Hi there, welcome to this segment of your show. My guest today, like I said in the intro, is Mona Lisa Abimbola Azeh. She is a lawyer turned into a shoemaker. Abimbola, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It sounds one kind when you say, it sounds, normally you would think a lawyer wouldn't go and become a shoemaker. Why did you choose to become a shoemaker?
I had issues with getting my shoes, comfortable, beautiful shoes in my size. So I started looking for ways to get shoes made for me. I noticed that Nigerian men were wearing real leather shoes. At that time, they had really stopped importing very good quality shoes from England and Italy and all of that. They were bringing in shoes from the Far East, Dubai. They were not comfortable. So I needed leather shoes, and I started working with shoemakers who were able to follow my designs and start making the kind of shoes I liked. And then one thing led to the other. I was working, I had sort of like stopped working as a lawyer at that time. I was actually working in a church as a church office administrator. And I'd done like a year and a half or so, and I sensed it was time for me to move on from that position, full-time position. And I spoke to my pastor and I was like, I think it's time for me to move on. And he said he believes so too. And he asked me what I was going to do. And I said, well, I could do several things. I could go back to practicing law. I could do events management because I had done some work with musicians, Christian musicians. I'd organized concerts and such events, gospel concerts. And so I was like rattling on the way I'm doing now, rambling. And he said, you sound confused. He said, why don't you go and take out time to pray and ask God what he wants you to do at this point. This was 2001. December, towards the end of 2001. So I took time out, like he said, and I prayed, and I felt led to make shoes. And prior to that time, I had started making shoes. I'd even done a few for customers, but I wasn't serious about it. But because I got this leading at this point, I decided to do it full time. So I went back and told my pastor, I think I know what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to start making shoes. And he gave me his blessings, and I pulled out from full-time work in church and started my business.
And the rest, like they say, is history. And your brand is called Mona Matthew, and it's today one of the leading bag and shoe makers here in Nigeria. You must be feeling very proud that you took the decision you took many years ago.
I'm very happy that I took the decision I took when I took it. One of the advantages I had was that I spoke to a friend of mine and I told him that I wanted to start this business, and I told him I didn't have capital to set up a factory and all of that. So he said to me, he thinks that I should go and do a business course. So I actually went to a business school called Faith Foundation. And when I got there, I realized that even though I had studied law and I had practiced for like 17 years, I really had no knowledge of how to run a business successfully. So being able to start at Faith in January alongside starting my business was really one of the things I believe that God used to push me to where I am.
And when you look back at what you've done. By the way, the bag on the set is one of your products. I've been looking at it since you walked in. Looks really, really good. Now, if you go back to your formative years, what do you see in your early years that you can look at what formed you?
So I grew up between two boys. So I grew up like a tomboy. I rode bicycles, climbed trees. I did what my brothers did, essentially, especially my older brother. And the way we were raised, my parents didn't raise us like, you're a girl, you can't do this, you must do this because you're a girl. No. We were raised to sort of like express ourselves, you know. And then I also grew up being exposed to a lot of creativity, live performances. We had, when we were in Ibadan, we had the arts theater there, you know, a lot of foreign students coming up to put up stage performances, sets, you know, and all of that. So I grew up seeing people do things, so to speak. I saw things grow. I saw people plant things. I saw people nurture things and wait patiently for it to bloom, you know, and all of that. And so I think the kind of mindset that gave me was, you can essentially do whatever it is you put your mind to. But you have to understand that things don't just happen overnight. You have to nurture them with the right balance of learning, prayers, and everything else that is involved. You can start anything and you can grow it to maturity.
One thing I've liked as I looked through your various interviews in the past is that you always seem to come back to mention the Lord Jesus Christ or ascribe, even in secular presses. When did you meet the Lord Jesus Christ? What was your salvation experience?
Okay, so my mother was born again like 40 years or so before I got born again. She came from an Anglican background. Her father was an Anglican priest. So she grew up in a Christian home. And we were exposed to that, you know how you go to your grandparents, you pray in the morning, you pray in the evening, and all of that. My mom brought that culture into our nuclear family. But my dad wasn't born again. He didn't even go to church, even though he had gone to Christ School, Ado-Ekiti, which was essentially a Christian school. He said he had read all the Bible and prayed all the prayers
for his
in his
life.
You know, that kind of thing. So we had that, my mom trying to bring us up as Christians, my dad, you know, so I tended to follow my dad. I was like the rebellious one, you know. And so my mom took us to church, but at a point, I said I wasn't going again.
You have done all the prayer and reading the Bible.
I was just like, you know, teenager. I just was like, I've had enough of this, and I stopped. I didn't go, but my siblings did. So I didn't get born again until I was 31. I got born again in 1994.
What happened?
So, like I said, I grew up around music and all of that, and I like live performances. So I had gone to the theater in the University of Lagos with a friend of mine, and we went to go and watch Olarotimi's stage play, Husband Has Gone Mad Again. I remember clearly. And I can't even remember the troupe that performed it, but it was a very brilliant performance, and we had a very good time. So I said to my friend, we're having such a good time, a girlfriend, we can't just go home and sleep like that. Let's go to Pinto's. Pinto's was a piano bar on Allen Avenue. We had live music. We had the likes of Samuel Okpozo, you know, and co playing and singing there. So I convinced her to let us go, and she apparently had become born again. She was a childhood friend, but I didn't know she had gotten born again, and that's interesting in itself, because my mom had led her mom to Christ, and her mom in turn had taken her to church, and she had gotten born again behind my back without my knowledge or my information or my permission. So she said to me, okay, yes, she would go to Pinto's with me on condition that I went to church with her the next morning. And I'm like, this morning is still far, let's go. So we went to Pinto's, and we were there till 4 a.m.
Wow.
Yes. So 4 a.m. we went back home and slept, and then about 9 o'clock she woke me and said, a bargain is a bargain. You agreed to go to church if I went to Pinto's with you. And I was like, okay, let's go, you know. So I got ready, wore my boo-boo, tied my scarf, and we went to Freedom Hall, the Redeemed Christian Center, Pastor Tony Rapu. Yes, Apapa Parish at the time. So we went to church, and I remember the pastor, but I don't remember a word that she preached that morning, because as the choir was ministering, I just felt like I'm giving my life to Christ today.
Why? What was happening inside of you?
Okay, so what happened was the choir had, in my mind, this is how I remember it, the choir had done their normal first maybe 20 minutes praise and worship, you know, and she came on the pulpit and she was supposed to minister, and she said no, that there was, God's presence was very manifest during the first service. This was the second service. That she wanted the choir to continue to minister until she could feel that presence again, and then she would, you know, come back. And that was all. And so, like I said, this is how I seem to remember it, that I think the choir leaders must have been challenged that that first one, you didn't deliver, you know. So I think they must have just gone into that session of praise and worship with all of their hearts. You know what I'm saying? And it was that second time when they began to minister again, I just felt I had to give my life to Christ. And so all I did was, I remember I waited for her to finish ministering, and I was just waiting to hear who wants to give their life to Christ, you know. And I remember having tears running down my face and all of that, and I came out, and that was it.
And that's been where your journey proper started with the Lord.
Yes.
And as you look back through Mona Lisa, I want you to look back at milestones, your journey with God through building this brand. What are some milestones that come to mind?
Okay, so we started the business. I started in my house. I didn't have anything, so to speak. But I also started the business school at the same time. So what that did for me was that it taught me certain things that I needed to know on how to build a brand and all of that. And I just started with what I had. It was more like, what do you have in your hand, you know? God can use it, that kind of thing. And I just started on a daily basis, just building, just planting, growing my clientele, bringing excellence to bear in the business, you know, as it was. And I remember when it was time for me to move from my house to get a shop, you know. And I remember that a lady had come to see me. She was a branch manager in a bank in the building on Ikorodu Road. And I said to her, you know, I need a shop. She said, oh, come to my complex, my plaza. And I mean, considering the revenue of my business at the time, it was foolish to even think about it, you know. But I just remember that I felt, okay, let me go and have a look, you know. And when I got there, it was the second floor that the space they had was in. And then I went to look at it, and I remember that a designer used to be in that building. Apparently the owner of the building, his daughter is a very well-known international designer, you know, Nigerian designer. And I remember that her shop was, so I knew that her shop was in the building and on the first floor. So I said, okay, let me go into her own shop and see what my own shop would look like, because it was right on top of it, almost like a replica, you know, same kind of space. So I went down, and I just noticed that there was just one rack of clothes, and the whole shop was empty. So I was like, what's going on here? And they said, oh, she had moved to Victoria Island. I was like, oh, really? And then I just felt, okay, so they're not really using this space. And the idea just came to me that, you know, why don't you find out and ask if you could share this space? Because to start with, I couldn't even afford the rent. But if I was sharing, that would reduce, you know, the amount of money that was involved and everything. So I asked the person who was showing me around, and he said that, well, only the owner, the founder, could give that kind of permission. So I said, well, I wanted to see him, you know. And I was bold enough to go to his office, and I had the real elevator pitch. I sat down, I waited for him for a number of hours. He was in meetings, and of course he wasn't expecting me. When he stepped out, he said, oh yes, I hear you want to see me. I said yes. And we entered the elevator. And between the 5th floor and the ground floor, I made my pitch, and he accepted. I told him I wanted to share the space, and he said yes. So for years, we were paying like just 50% of the value of what that space is worth.
And you were using half of it?
We're using the whole thing.
That's favor from God.
Absolutely.
And you must have experienced a lot of that along the way, because you've gone on to represent Nigeria outside the country in the area of your industry.
Yes.
Are there some other ones that come to mind?
Okay, I can tell you a story of how that started, how I even got the first opportunity to go out of Nigeria. So I had been attending, I was invited to participate in the International Trade Fair, Lagos International Trade Fair, at the Trade Fair complex at that time. That was where they were holding it. And I was driving from Anthony to the Trade Fair complex for like almost 10 days. We didn't sell anything. And on the one day that I didn't go, someone had come to my stand and he had seen my things and he was like, wow, this is really good work. And he took my card, you know, and I was told somebody took my card and I was like, that's fine and everything. And all of that. But apparently God had packaged something inside all of that for me, you know, and so I went for this event, you know, and at that time our complimentary cards, I don't know if you remember, but we used to draw we used to put the pictures of our products on our complimentary cards, you know. So I had this picture of this damask shoe and bag. I remember the card on the card, you know, and all of that. And so I went for the event and I went into the ladies and I didn't know the DG was in the ladies as well. And something happened and I exclaimed my name. I called my name. And the lady came out and she was like...
You called your name in exclamation?
Yes,
Who does that?
Women do it.
Abimbola.
Yeah, but I called my first and second name, my first and last name, you know. So I said Abimbola Azeh, which was my maiden name. And the lady came out and said, oh, your dad was so and so. He helped me at some point or the other, blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, really? But before then, you know, she had, I had introduced myself. I don't know how I got introduced to her. And she had gotten my card. And she was like, she just saw the pictures of my card. And she was like, you made this? I said, yes. She said, are you sure? I said, yes. And the man who had picked my card, I think he was there. And he was like, yes, I saw her products, very good. She said, oh, I'm going to take you on international missions, you know, to show what you're doing and all of that and all of that. And really, that was how it happened. And
you started going on international missions?
I remember I went to like 2 missions in the US. I went to Dubai, you know, through the export promotion camps.
And that's wonderful. Your company is called Mona Matthew.
Mona Matthews, yes.
Matthews is after your dad. Tell us about him.
My dad was, he was an interesting kind of fellow. He was very, very Nigerian, but also very cosmopolitan in the sense that, okay, so my dad was registrar at Unilag at a point, and he had a horse.
A live horse?
My dad had a horse, he called it Napoleon. It was a black, huge, I don't know, stallion. In the morning, and he had embedded speakers all around the house. And you just wake up and you'll be hearing Nat King Cole singing Mona Lisa, da 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 da, you know, those kind of things. He studied classics in University of Ibadan, and then he went on to Columbia University to study public administration, you know, and he excelled in what he was doing. My father taught us hard work. He taught us to be responsible. My father taught us integrity. So those years as registrar, people would come and try and bribe him, give him stuff to make him do things, admissions and stuff like that. But even for me to enter uni, like I had to pass my exams. I remember when I did my A-levels, he called me and said he had sent me on my first and last trip that he sent me abroad on holidays. And he called me in the UK and he said to me, you didn't pass your exams. You can't get into Unilag Law. I said, what do you mean I didn't pass? He said, you didn't pass literature. I said, it's not possible for me not to pass literature. I got the best results in the mock exams, so I don't see how you can say I didn't pass. So because he had worked in WAEC before, he said, well, your school has to write and ask them to check your scripts again and see if there was a problem there. And they checked, and apparently the script was properly marked, but the marks were not properly collated. Long story short, they were able to collate it properly and I got my proper results. But if that hadn't happened, I wasn't going to get into Unilag.
He wasn't going to jump the queue.
Despite the fact, he wouldn't have done that for me.
So he taught you integrity, hard work, and all that. Let's go back to your business. What has been the most challenging part of the journey of Mona Matthews?
Mona Matthews is structured to use independent contractors. So all our shoemakers run their own little workshop. And the reason for that is because when I started, I didn't have any money to set up a factory. But also because my friend who I spoke to and advised me to go to the business school told me that that shouldn't be a problem because Nike is the biggest shoe brand in the world and they don't have a factory, so I can just outsource production. So we started. Now, the shoemakers were very good, but they were not as good as I wanted. So I needed to work with them to upskill, you know, to improve their skills and make sure that they could continuously produce the quality that I want, you know. And so it's been a nurturing process. It's been slow. It's been a lot of work. It's not exactly profitable at the beginning because there are lots of mistakes that you have to, you know, pass through and all of that. And just, of course, just building up the people themselves and letting them understand the fact that this has to be done properly all the time. Yeah, so that's one of the things.
What are the lessons you've learned along the way in the last years of building this brand? What are, especially in your journey with the Lord, what are some key lessons you've learned?
Well, for me, one of the things that sustains me in my business is the fact that I heard from God about even starting this kind of business.
He led me into it.
Yes. That sustains me because there are times when you feel like, man, this thing is not working. I'm out of here, you know. Secondly, I remember when I started, one of the key things in my mind was, as a nation, we cannot continue to consume. We need to produce, you know. As a nation, we need to show, and then I remember that period as well. One of the things Nigeria was really known for was fraud, 419, you know, and all of that. And one of the things on my mind was, I wanted to show the world that good things could come out of this nation. That Nigerians are not just about fraud, you know, and all of that, but that Nigerians we can design beautiful things, we can produce good things, we can run businesses effectively and compete on an international him, how to grow whatever it is I'm doing, how to learn to listen to him, to navigate those paths, you know, because people say to me, what's your biggest challenge? But what I found in working with God is that every challenge, depending on how you approach it, is actually a stepping stone to where God wants you to be. One of my earliest challenges, for instance, in my business was that a lot of people who were making shoes for men, not women. But I wanted to make shoes for women as well as men. And the materials available in the market were not suitable for women per se. And even if you found them, they were not fashionable. So we had to start making things. I remember one particular style of shoes that we were making. We had to actually go to Aba and carve the soles from wood, yes, and then bring them to Lagos and then begin to build the shoes on it. That design has become one of my mainstays, one of my best sellers today. I no longer use the wood because I no longer have to. The people who bring in things, they've started bringing the appropriate thing. But the thing is that I didn't rest on my oars and say, I can't find it, it's not in the market. I learned that you could make it.
Create what you
want and just, you know, work around the challenges. And that
so the challenges you faced stretched you to be more innovative.
Absolutely.
And what's your dream? What are you looking ahead to? At this stage, what are you dreaming about?
For Mona Matthews.
Mona Matthews, but essentially for you as a person, because you are not just Mona Matthews, you are more than that.
Okay, so for me, I see myself as an apostle in the marketplace. I see my business as my contact points with the world that God wants me to influence. I bring into my craft the virtues of God: excellence, integrity, care, love. Okay? A lot of my clients are people who have issues with their legs and their feet. Not maybe some from age, some from illness and all of that. I show them that I can make you beautiful shoes that are comfortable, you know, and that will last for a long time. I see my products as a contact point for salvation. So I'm sending my shoes into your home, I'm sending my bags into your home, but I'm using them as prayer points, and I'm saying the people who wear my shoes, those who don't know you, let them come into you to know you. Those who already know you, let them enter into the fullness of what you have called them to be, you know, and wherever my products are, that's my contact point to reach those lives.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
As we round up, could you look into the camera and talk to those who are maybe aspiring entrepreneurs?
So thank you for watching the program so far. What I want to say to you is that whatever it is you have in your heart that you want to do, don't let what you have or where you are stop you. Start with what you have, start with where you are, but go through the process, you know, go through the process, learn about your craft, learn about your God, and learn about yourself, and grow as you go.
Thank you so much, Mona Lisa Abimbola Azeh. I've been talking to Mona Lisa Abimbola Azeh. She's the CEO of Mona Matthews, a leading shoe and bag making company here in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us. And viewers, thank you for watching. Please like this video and leave a comment below. Let's know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell button and share this video with somebody.